A very pleasant good evening to one and all who have joined us today, and warm welcome to Ontario Heroes Career Clinic on Licensing as a Pharmacist. My name is Rachel Mary Joseph, and I'm a recently licensed pharmacist. I'll be the MC for tonight. For those who don't know about Ontario Heroes, I'll give a brief introduction. The Ontario Heroes is a registered non-profit organization providing a range of voluntary services across the province, inspired by the vision to bring collaboration closer to the people. The Heroes are a group of volunteers from diverse professional backgrounds, offering legal as well as social services and also healthcare system navigation to the people of Ontario, including and exclusively to the international students. And the Heroes Career Clinic, that is the event which we are having right now, aims to facilitate and support job seekers across the province through networking and collaboration. I would like to take a moment to welcome the man responsible for this event, Mr. Praveen Murthy, the President and CEO of Ontario Heroes. He's a great social worker, a leader, a visionary who is reliable and is well connected with the diverse communities across Canada. A very hearty welcome to you, Mr. Praveen Murthy. On behalf of the Ontario Heroes, I would also like to welcome all our esteemed speakers to this event. Today, we also have with us Ms. Chris Lamanil, the Director of Legal Services of the Ontario Heroes. He is a barrister, solicitor, and notary public in Ontario and will be addressing all the immigration-related questions at the end of the session. Welcome, Ms. Chris Lamanil. Now, to start with, I would just like to give you some ground rules for this event. I request all the audience to please mute your microphones for the smooth conduct of the session. I would also like to inform you that we will have a question and answer session at the end. So please keep the questions in your mind until then. But you can post the questions in the chat box on the right side, and the moderator will discuss them with the speakers towards the end of the sessions. And this program will be streamed live and also recorded, and later will be uploaded in the Ontario Heroes website. So if necessary, we can also organize some follow-up sessions for this in the near future. Before we start with the expert speakers, being a recently registered pharmacist, I was asked to talk a little bit about myself and share my experience, which might be helpful to the audience who are pharmacy aspirants in Canada. So I graduated from PhD College of Pharmacy, Coimbatore, with a Doctor of Pharmacy in the year 2015. And during my academic year, I was a very active student council's member, and I received several awards, like the award for the best academic performance in all the 6 academic years. And I was also the recipient of the award for the best clinical performance. And being more interested in clinical practice and research, I started my career as a clinical pharmacist, and I worked in inpatient hospital setting within the areas of cardiology and intensive care units at 2 different prestigious hospitals. And in the meantime, I also did some research work, and I've got 6 international journal publications to the date. So I migrated in Canada in 2018, and I started my my preparation for the PEDC exams. And basically one has to clear 4 exams to get registered. And I cleared my first exam, which is the evaluating exam, in July 2018. And then the second exam and third exam, which are qualifying exams, both MCQ and OSCE, by November 2019. Then after clearing my exams, I started working as a pharmacy assistant before starting my internship. But my internship got a little bit delayed because of the pandemic. And finally, I got my license just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm waiting to enter the career. So from my experience, I just wanted to let you know that while preparing for the exams, you are not alone or helpless. We have several coaching centers here, which can guide us throughout the process. And personally, I got trained from Pharma Prep for my first exam, that is evaluating exam. And for the second exam and for the qualifying exams, both part, I got trained from Pharma Spirit, which was an amazing coaching center. Like, it was really good. And if you ask me about the exams, I would say that these exams are not super easy, but at the same time, they are not very, very tough as people think. So if you clearly focus on the goal and trust the knowledge you have, you will definitely be able to crack these exams. And that's all about myself, and the whole licensing process will be explained in detail by our expert speakers in the coming sessions. So let's move on to the most awaited sessions on licensing as a pharmacist and career paths. Our moderator for today's event will be Dr. Hina Marsonia. Dr. Hina graduated from the University of Toronto in 1999 and obtained her PharmD at University of Colorado in 2009. She has worked in multiple settings, including community, inpatient hospital pharmacy in the areas of medicine, cardiology, critical care, and cardiac intensive care units. She has been involved in multiple committees within the hospital practice. She founded RX Innovative Solutions, where she developed courses and successfully trained over 1,000 foreign trained pharmacists, just like me, for the PBC 1 and 2 exams from the year 2009 to 2013. She developed 1,500 examination questions for the written examination and prepared and conducted over 120 mock standardized patient scenarios for the OSCE exam. She was a volunteer council member of the Ontario College of Pharmacists Professional Practice Committee from 2001 to 2004 and an assessor for the PBC exams from 2002 to 2005. She has completed multiple speaking engagements on various clinical topics. She currently works at the William Osler Health System in the outpatient setting, where she manages patients with multiple comorbidities. Dr. Hina Marsonia, we are extremely honored to have you here as a speaker as well as moderator today. And over to you, Dr. Hina.
Thank you, Rinku, for your feedback and your experience on your training and successfully passing your exams and becoming a pharmacist. Great accomplishments. At this time, I'm going to take the opportunity to present our speaker, Kevin Lam. Kevin Lam completed a Bachelor of Medical Science in 2008 and then went on to complete a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy at the University of Waterloo in 2012. His pharmacy co-op program gave him an opportunity to practice in various settings, including community and hospital practice during his co-op placements. He has wide experience in hospital practice, including working in various inpatient units, such as ICU, CCU, medicine, cardiology, as well as the outpatient complex medicine and urgent medicine clinic throughout his work experience at William Osler Health Systems. He was the recipient of the 2016 Interprofessional Award of Excellence in Early Career. Kevin transitioned to specialty practice as a pharmacist providing care in a multi-organ transplant unit at Toronto General Hospital. His experience working with multiple hospital networks with different electronic medication record systems aligns well with his passion to identify gaps and opportunities for improvement, support implementation and technology enhancement. Just to give you some, little tidbits about Kevin. Kevin, during the pandemic, supported modification to enhance workflow, which included moving additional resources to the hospital cloud storage for remote access and onboarding new pharmacists to work from home, and introduced Microsoft Team Chat for secure line of communications between team members. His long-term goals is to positively contribute in clinical expertise and development of clinical applications used in hospital practice. This just goes to show that, you know, as a pharmacist, you can do a lot of impactful, meaningful contributions within patient care, as well as expand your horizons wherever it takes you. So Kevin, thanks for joining the group, and thank you for highlighting and sharing your experiences with the group. Take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be invited to this event. So thank you to Hina and Praveen for putting this all together and have such a great turnout. To be honest, I was really surprised when Hina called me and asked me to speak at this event, because I'm probably the one pharmacist with the least amount of letters after my name in this group, as you could see. I'm just a registered pharmacist. I don't have a PharmD. I don't have a master's. So when Hina called me, I was like, "Why do you want me to talk at this event?" And she was actually, you know, she's been my mentor still, even though I work at a different organization. When I joined William Osler, she sort of just held my hand from the start and watched me grow. And then now I'm at a different organization, but we still keep in touch very closely. So I just thought that for a lot of you who probably have a more experience than I do as a pharmacist, or has additional certifications or training like PharmD or Masters, I thought I would just share my experience as a hospital pharmacist, sort of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And feel free to put your questions in the chat while I'm talking. I normally like to have a conversation with people versus me just talking at people. So if you have a question, feel free to post it in the chat. I have it open so I could try my best to answer as I go along. So as Hina has said already, I've worked in a lot of different I've been in many different positions within a hospital organization. I started off with inpatient, and then moved to ambulatory care, which is outpatient, and then now back to inpatient. Well, sort of a mix of inpatient and outpatient. But as Hina said, I went to University of Waterloo, which was at the time one of the 2 co-op pharmacy programs in North America. I don't know if that's still the case. So that really gave me the opportunity to get exposed to different pharmacy practice. I worked in the community. I went during my co-op. I worked at the hospital at Sunnybrook. I also had a project-based position with PharmaSafe National. So that was sort of more like an industry position. And at the end of it, after I graduated, I decided, hospital practice is best suited for myself. So I decided to pursue that. It wasn't easy at first to try to get a job, as a lot of you could appreciate. The competition is stiff, and more often than not, hospital likes to hire people with postgraduate degrees or a residency in hospitals. So it was not easy for me to get a job at the time. I did apply for residency but didn't get in. So what I ended up doing was literally going to different hospitals in person to try to chat with managers or coordinators to see if there are openings available for an internship. I also called a lot of different hospitals, talked to directors, had lengthy conversations with them over the phone to discuss about opportunities. So it wasn't an easy start per se. And then I ended up at William Osler, where I met Hina. So that was my first sort of full hospital job after I graduated. I had a short stint at another hospital where I did my internship, but my first real pharmacy job as a pharmacist, what I consider my first real job, is at William Osler. I still see that as my home. So when I started at William Osler, I started on cardiology, as well as mixed with some intensive care unit and the coronary care unit. So in an inpatient setting, especially at a place like the ICU and CCU, you work very close with the team. In the ICU, we do daily rounds. So we round with the intensivist, as well as the physiotherapist, the respiratory therapist, dietitian, the pharmacist, so myself, and we go through every patient every morning. And in some institutions, they actually do rounds twice daily. They'll do morning rounds and then they'll round again in the afternoon. And it's a very collaborative practice when you work in a place like the ICU or CCU, because you're going into great details for each patient, and you go from head to toe. That's usually the structure with the intensivist, and they rely on you as a source of information for drugs. So it was intimidating at first to start my career in that type of setting, even though I started off with some inpatient experience already with my internship, but going into intensive care it's a whole different world. But thankfully I had really good mentors that trained me to transition into the ICU. And so I was in the ICU CCU setting for quite some time before I moved into cardiology and neurology, and also did some emergency medicine at William Osler. So I guess also to give you an overview of what the difference would be like if you work on a more general ward, general medicine, cardiology type setting, is that things move a lot quicker. There's the turnover is it's crazy some days. And when I was at William Osler, it's usually 30 patients to one pharmacist, and that's normal. A good day would be maybe 25 patients, but that never happened when I was at William Osler. So things, move really quick, and you just have to focus. A lot of times, it's unfortunate, that's not what we learn in school, that, we got to address every single drug therapy problem. But in practice in the hospital, when you're in a setting like cardiology or general medicine, you just have to, pick your battles and pick out the most important drug therapy problems and prioritize them and address those first. So that was sort of my experience in the medicine ward or cardiology ward. And then from there, I moved on to something sort of on the opposite end, which was outpatient care. So after I finished my inpatient stint at William Osler, there was a permanent position that was available in the ambulatory clinics, which is where Hina works now. So at the time, I worked in a clinic called Urgent Medicine Clinic, as well as a Complex Medicine Clinic. So that's also where I met Praveen. He was our social worker, or he still is the social worker at the Urgent Medicine Clinic and the Complex Medicine Clinic. And it was an eye-opening experience to go from inpatient to outpatient. It really allowed me to see the full circle of things, right? I went from inpatient and trying to focus and take care of more of the acute issues, to an outpatient setting where I have a lot more time to spend with the patient. And I was able to see what kind of gaps there are when a patient goes from being admitted to discharge. So that was the most interesting for me when I went from inpatient care to ambulatory care, and to be able to see the difference it could make as a pharmacist in an ambulatory setting, to catch all the things that maybe weren't addressed when the patient was discharged from being admitted. That was really an interesting and unique experience. And then from that setting, I moved on to another organization, which is where I am now, at University Health Network at the Toronto General Site, where I work with within the multi-organ transplant program. Again, a totally different and unique experience than what I've ever seen before. When I was at William Osler, the odd times you would see a patient comes in who are transplant patients, and they may be on some transplant medications, but we never really had to go into details with them. But to now going to work full time in a transplant program, again, it's completely different. Um, working in the transplant program. It's almost like working in a mixed surgical slash medicine unit, and also with a lot of ambulatory issues. And the reason why I say that, so this place is unique in itself, that the disease state, the disease state itself is unique, but also the setting, the practice setting I'm in, um, it's not very, as you don't see it very common in other institutions. So we have the multi-organ transplant program, but then we also have our own specialty pharmacy, the transplant outpatient pharmacy. So what ends up happening is, as an inpatient pharmacist, we often becomes the bridge between the patient being admitted to now their discharge, and how the coordination of their discharge medications is going to look like. So when I was working as an inpatient pharmacist at William Osler, and we were doing like 30 patients to one pharmacist, I would never have time to deal with every single discharge. We would deal with it sort of on the fly basis. If the doctor asked me that, oh, there's a patient that's going home, we need a discharge medication reconciliation to be completed, then I would go and do it. But here with the transplant program, because we have our own outpatient transplant pharmacy, the team ends up relying on us to help coordinate that discharge prescription. So it's a whole other set of skills that I'm learning as well now in the transplant unit, even though I'm still working inpatient. But now I also have to be mindful about things like drug coverage things, which I never had to think about in a hospital setting. I don't think about, oh, is the patient going to be able to afford this medication when they go home, or where are they going to get this medication, because the run-of-the-mill community pharmacies may not carry these transplant drugs. What about exceptional access drugs, special access drugs? Like, those are things that I never had to deal with when I was working on the medicine floor or in the ICU. But now working in a specialty area, those type of things all of a sudden becomes a day-to-day. That's like my norm now. And we even have our own drug reimbursement specialist within the program. She's not a pharmacist, but she has worked in the industry, so she's got industry experience, and she is our own drug reimbursement specialist for the transplant program. There's a whole team of coordinators, social workers, like a ton of social workers, as you could appreciate, especially with certain transplant populations within our program. So, for example, the alcoholic liver transplant protocol that we have, these patients comes in with a lot of social issues as well. So social workers plays a huge role on our team. So it's really dynamic, it's really fast paced, and it's very multifaceted. And I've left Osler for about almost 3 years now, and I still feel like I'm learning every day, being in the transplant program, because nothing follows the normal the normal guidelines that we've learned in school. Everything is based on the transplant physician's experience or the transplant center's experience. So that was an eye opener, and not to sway too far away from me talking about my experience as an inpatient clinical pharmacist, but working in a hospital has also exposed me to a lot of different opportunities that pharmacists can have. So you're not just stuck as working as a pharmacist on the floor. There are also pharmacists that works as in drug info specifically. There are pharmacists that works with the investigational department. So all they do is they deal with the trial medications within the hospital. There are pharmacists that works in digital and informatics. So they help with tuning up our electronic medical system to make sure that the order sets make sense. That when prescribers are putting things in, how do we best prevent errors when they're putting orders in? So there are still within the hospital system, many hats that a pharmacist can wear. Um, so if hospital is a career path where you're considering, I do highly recommend it, because there are just I'm the type of person that I can't really sit still in one job. After a few years, I like to change and do something else. And being in the hospital setting, I think that allows me the opportunity to do that. Um, and I would highly recommend it. And I think I'm talking too much now. I think I've gone way over my time. Hina's nodding her head. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them before I sign off.
Any questions for Kevin? Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 questions before he signs off, as he has other commitments. Okay, well, Kevin, I'd like to thank you. I think you've highlighted the importance of lifelong learning, and your transitioning is definitely something that is inspiring, because as pharmacists, we continue learning, and that's important. Does anyone have a question?
I think there's one person asked, how do we become hospital pharmacists as an international graduate?
Great question. So, I know, certainly, Kevin, do you have a answer for that, or? I can provide.
Not particularly. I mean, I've met some pharmacists who I work with who are international graduates. So they go through the same licensing process as everyone. And really, I think with hospital pharmacy, again, competitions is often quite stiff to try to get a position. So I think my best advice is don't be picky, which is my approach when I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
I live in my home is in Markham. So after I graduated from Waterloo, I lived with my parents, which is in Markham, but I wanted a hospital job, so I couldn't be picky. So my first job as an intern, I went all the way to Burlington. So I moved to Mississauga so that I could get a hospital job. I also interviewed in London, Ontario. So I think the key thing is don't be picky about, the location as well as the position.
Yes.
Those will come with time once you've, got your foot in the door.
I completely agree with that. I'm a residency coordinator. I've done interviews for the hospital as well. I think some of the strategies that people that I've seen that have successfully transitioned as a clinical pharmacist are those that have taken those dispensary pharmacist jobs, where, potentially you might be working evening shifts straight on or night shifts. And then, when the opportunity did come for those positions, and they did transition. But again, you have to put in the work. It is a lot of learning when you're in hospital, and you always will have mentors that will be willing to teach you as long as you are willing to learn. So learn from the best, and find those mentors when you're in those positions. And if it means that you're taking on evening dispensary pharmacist position or overnight pharmacist position, you get plenty of training, at least a month or 2 of training when you're in hospital. So you learn the system, you learn the clinical questions, and you have pharmacists that will be your mentors. And you can always ask questions as you go through your journey. Okay, thank you, Kevin. If there are any other questions,
thank you. Bye, Hina.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. So our next presenter is Sharon Lee. It is my pleasure to introduce Sharon, my mentor when I started my career in pharmacy. Sharon Lee graduated from the University of Toronto in 1979 and completed a residency in hospital practice in 1980. She has decades of experience in hospital pharmacy practice in various settings, as well as various hospitals, including Princess Margaret, Toronto General Hospital, St. Joseph's Health Centre, as well as William Osler Health Systems. She has experience in oncology, respirology, general medicine, cardiovascular ICU, sterile compounding, palliative care, as well as the outpatient pharmacy. She transitioned her career to teaching full-time as a professor for the pharmacy technician program at Humber Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning in Toronto in 2003. During her time as a professor at Humber and then as a coordinator for the pharmacy technician program, she implemented the pharmacy technician bridging program with 200 continuing education students, creating and mapping the NAPRA competencies to learning outcomes for all of the courses, and submitted for full accreditation status in 2008, 2012, and 2017. She coordinated the program for up to 175 students, full-time faculties, and part-time instructors. She completed a higher education teaching certificate in 2005. She has actively participated in volunteering work, including interprofessional clinical placement in Guatemala in 2020. And I'll let her share that experience with you. And it seems like it was a very worthwhile learning opportunity to bring back to our community, where we see under-resourced communities within our setting as well. She has contributed to the University of Toronto program as a preceptor and a mentor over the years. Recently, Sharon has taken time for herself and now is working part-time on a special project as the interprofessional team member to develop interprofessional learning modules for the faculty at Humber and assists with development of interprofessional programs for students of the health, science, and wellness. It is my pleasure to hand over to Sharon to share her experience and thoughts with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Hina. I'm going to take and thank you for having me. Thank you to Ontario Heroes for reaching out, and Hina in particular. Our paths have crossed for many, many years. Thank you for asking me to come and join you this evening. This is an amazing setup, and I hope I can share some of my experiences and journey with you. I'm going to take a slightly different tact from Kevin and share a PowerPoint slide with you so that I keep myself on track. So, here we go. So bear with me. Okay, so sharing with you my pharmacy career. It has been a journey, and I chose this infographic deliberately. It's not been a straight line. It's had some twists and curves, and I hope to take you along that journey and explain how they came about and how I prepared for them. Very, very briefly, I think many of my esteemed colleagues who are speaking tonight have far more recent education experiences to share with you. But in general, I graduated from the University of Toronto with my bachelor's degree, cleared the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada, the Ontario College of Pharmacists requirements. So I'm a licensed pharmacist in Ontario. I completed a hospital pharmacy residency in London, Ontario, and a teaching effectiveness certificate at the Humber Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning. So my hospital pharmacy residency, Kevin alluded to that earlier. It is a one-year specialization, and for me it was to specialize in hospital pharmacy practice. It's run through the Canadian Society of Hospital Pharmacists, and there is a very rigorous application and a competitive selective process. Having completed my residency, it enabled me to practice more of my clinical skills, work directly with many, many different healthcare providers. Doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, the whole team. I was part of that team gaining that experience. My preceptors helped me identify my strengths, helped me identify areas for improvement, my weaknesses, so I was able to grow as a professional. My thesis on that during that residency was on total parenteral nutrition. And I think one of the most fascinating rotations I had was in nuclear medicine, which is another area for hospital pharmacists to be involved in. I won't spend a lot of time on my hospital roles. I think Kevin really did a great job outlining all the different roles that he's had. But some of my full-time roles in hospital pharmacy, I started off at a major teaching hospital, and it was a focus on oncology. My focus there really started to develop into patient teaching. From there, I went to a large teaching hospital and really had a wide variety of experience. General medicine, oncology followed me there. I was part of the team that set up the first outpatient clinic to prepare oncology IV drugs for patients in a safe manner. And I was involved there in teaching, pharmacy residents, pharmacy students, university students as well. From full-time work, hospital pharmacy also gave me the ability to work part-time. So at some of the community hospitals, I really was involved in many different departments. Many of my positions were float positions, so I would fill in for the full-time staff who had a day off. The emergency department, surgery, medicine, the intensive care unit. Through my part-time roles, I continued my involvement with intravenous preparation, training and certification of staff, mentoring students, pharmacy residents, and was involved in a lot of project work, helping to develop drug protocols, submissions to the Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee. And during one of my part-time roles, I was able to develop new skill sets in palliative care, which was a very challenging area, but it was also a very rewarding role that I was able to fulfill. And again, that hospital pharmacy role for me, it allowed me flexibility in my work days. Hospitals are open 24/7, evening shifts, weekend shifts, part-time shifts 2 or 3 days a week gave me flexibility for my personal life as well. There were some questions earlier about career advancements. And I think for me, it was always looking for opportunities to expand my knowledge and skills. Were there any certification courses I could take? Continuing education, it became so important to continually expand and look for those opportunities. I really enjoyed acting as a preceptor for new graduates through the Ontario College of Pharmacists. I have acted as a preceptor for the Advanced Pharmacy Placement Experience students from the University of Toronto. And again, I think I gain as much from the students as I hope I'm able to share with them as they bring new ideas and keep me up to date as well. I've always enjoyed working with pharmacy students on placements, pharmacy tech students as well. And in terms of career advancement, looking to the hospital committees as I worked in the hospital environment. Where could I contribute outside of just the pharmacy department? Presentations to the Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee, working on drug protocols, orienting new staff. And again, look for volunteer positions. It's amazing what skill sets you can start to develop and work on in volunteer positions that really are not even related to pharmacy. Organization skills, leadership skills, community involvement. I was involved with Girl Guides of Canada for many, many years. I worked and was asked by the running room to come in and give motivational speeches to the running room clinics. I've worked with the Canadian Cancer Society, and that probably tags back to my time in oncology as well. But those volunteer positions that you can get involved in really do help to add to that resume as you're looking for career advancement. And something like Ontario Heroes, being a volunteer, it doesn't seem to add directly to your professional career as a pharmacist. or as a pharmacy technician, but it adds to that skill set that your employers may be looking for. So then there was a twist in my journey, and I became a professor. It was time, there was a posting at Humber College. It was a contract position, so an 8-month position to cover a professor on sabbatical. From there, it led to several part-time contracts teaching in the pharmacy technician program. And through time, that led to a full-time faculty position. And eventually I transitioned into the coordinator of the program. And so some of the previous experiences that I had that helped me with that transition, all my work through all the years as a mentor, as a preceptor. I think if you think back to all the highlights that I've mentioned of my career, teaching comes into it frequently. So that helped me realize that maybe teaching was what I really wanted to do as well. Organizing various events. Organizing events translated into organizing a classroom and making sure that that lecture ran smoothly. Leading seminars, being involved in conferences. And I think looking for those advancements, and the twist in this journey was being open to new avenues and open to exploring new challenges and setting up those challenges and pushing myself into those roles. And again, I think Hina mentioned asking for guidance along the way. It really was important for me to talk to people. How did you do it? What should I do? What could I do better to improve? So that was the twist that took me into teaching. As I mentioned, part-time, in getting these positions, it's not always that you're able to step into a full-time position right off. A part-time position, 3 hours a week for 15 weeks is what I started with. And from there, part-time in the day program, and through time, I was able to secure a full-time position and move on to the coordinator position. So my professor's role, I'll spend a little bit more time because this perhaps is a more unique role for a pharmacist. We do at Humber, we have a full-time pharmacy technician teaching in the program as well. So I completed a teaching effectiveness certificate through Humber College, and that gave me background and an understanding of how to create a positive learning environment, how to create assessments, those dreaded exams that we all have to write when we're students and licensing, and how to deliver material. How do we teach students? How do we teach adults? I worked on developing courses for the pharmacy technician program. We had to meet NAPRA standards. NAPRA sets out the entry to practice competencies, and it was my job to ensure that the students graduating from the pharmacy technician program actually met those competencies when they left Humber College. I wanted to make sure that we provided our students with a positive learning experience, ensuring that they met the course objectives and also met national standards. There was classroom management, course development, learning outcomes and assessments, and guiding students with concerns with their courses, and helping them make the choices that made the most sense for them, guiding them in their new careers. Our lab courses I really enjoyed. They were hands-on, and I needed to be current in practice along with my faculty members. Those labs we were teaching community pharmacy practice, hospital practice, in dispensing skills. So we needed to know what was coming around the corner, what was ahead, what was the role for pharmacy technicians, to make sure that we were incorporating those skill sets into what was being taught in the classroom. An important part of the pharmacy technician program is that it is accredited. And that is a very rigorous process where there's outside assessors who come in and spend a day reviewing the whole program to make sure that that program is offering a very high quality program that meets national standards. Part of being a professor also was keeping my pharmacist license active as well. So I worked part-time in an outpatient pharmacy at that point. My side adventure, as Hina mentioned, was a trip to Guatemala. This was an amazing medical mission. It was through Humber College. We took 11 students down with us. We had 8 faculty and medical personnel with us. We spent 8 days in Guatemala and provided assessments and treatments for close to 500 people. This is just a photo at one of the clinics. We set up mobile clinics, and this one was actually just outside the Guatemala City dump. And these individuals we were helping scavenge in the dump to make a living. This was the only opportunity for them to seek medical attention. We took down, I think 18 50-pound bags of donated medical supplies and equipment and medication, and did the best we could with the limited supplies we had to treat all these individuals. And I think what was one of the challenging patients that we saw, a lot of these individuals have respiratory problems. They live in small hovels. They have coal burning little stoves to keep warm and to cook, so they're always inhaling soot and smoke. And we treated one little girl, a 2-year-old, who had asthma. We had a Ventolin inhaler that we were dispensing for her, and Mom wanted to know whether this would cure her. And we said no, but it will help her breathe. And Mom said to us, "What am I going to do when I run out of the drug?" We had nothing more to give her, and she had no means to get more of a simple, what we would see in Canada, certainly, because we are so privileged, how to get another Ventolin inhaler. But it was a very humbling experience. It was also heartwarming because the individuals we met were just so grateful for any of the advice and treatment that we could give to them. So that's something else as a pharmacist, as a pharmacy technician. There are outreach programs, Doctors Without Borders, where you can volunteer your time as well. Currently, I retired from full-time teaching in the fall of 2020, and I'm working on special projects with interprofessional education. And I think that's reflected in that trip to Guatemala, where it truly was an interprofessional team. Now, what I'd like to spend the rest of my time on, perhaps in a little more detail, is the pharmacy technician education. That's where I've spent half of my career. In looking at pharmacy technician programs, there are 2 basic types in the province of Ontario. What we call community colleges. They're provincially funded by the provincial government. And you can check ontariocolleges.ca for those community colleges. And there are private career colleges as well, and they run for-profit programs. A key part of this is to look for a program that's accredited by the Canadian Council for Accreditation of Pharmacy Programs. That is your seal of quality that the program has been vetted and meets national standards. You want to check the faculty who are teaching in that pharmacy technician program. Do you have a mix of pharmacists and pharmacy technicians? Or is it just pharmacy technicians? I think with the mix, you get a broader education. Or perhaps it's just one person teaching the entire program. I think the more individuals you have teaching you, the broader that experience will be for you. Lab facilities and equipment are very important as well. Are you going to be able to work in specialized hoods for your IV preparation? Are you going to be working with automatic prepackaged machines? or are you simply going to be looking at them? Are you actually going to be able to use the equipment? Another key point is the student-professor ratio. How many students, how many teachers? And this one I put in, what's in a name? We often hear in Ontario, pharmacy technician and pharmacy assistant, and they are quite different. Pharmacy technician is in Ontario what we refer to as a protected title. Only regulated healthcare professionals who are licensed with the Ontario College of Pharmacists may use the title pharmacy technician. A pharmacy assistant is usually an individual who works in a pharmacy, could be a hospital, could be a community pharmacy, and that individual may or may not have any formal training. They are not licensed and they are not able to call themselves pharmacy technicians. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Pharmacy technician is a regulated healthcare professional. How do we get into a pharmacy technician program? One of the most challenging entry requirements for international applicants are the English language requirements, and they can be found on napra.ca. And I've just summarized the basics here. For your English language requirements, if English is not your first language, you will have to submit evidence of proficiency testing. TOEFL International, your minimum score must be 91 or higher. MELAB, it's in the 80 to 83 range. IELTS has to be an overall 6.5. And the CAN test is an overall 4.5. There are specific limits with each of those, and I would suggest that you look at the NAPRA guidelines to see all those details. But that is the one key that you really need to make sure that your English language skills are exemplary to be able to get into a pharmacy technician program. In addition to that, senior level math and chemistry or equivalent will be required. Each individual college will look at those separately. Communication skills are critical. That's why the language skills are so high. And to be successful as a pharmacy technician student, my suggestion is meet your classmates, get to know them. Teamwork is very important. Keep up with your work and assignments. In the community college setting, attending all classes and labs is vital. It's not like some of the university courses where you can get the textbook or read the textbook and pop in and write your exams. You need to be in class all the time and at your labs. And again, success as a pharmacy technician student, success as a professional, read and keep current with current advances in the profession. Continuing education starts when you become a student and it continues throughout your career. Health Canada, Canadian Healthcare Network, the Institute for Safe Medication Practice. Tech Talk is produced by one of the generic manufacturers specifically for technicians, but there are many. Get involved and keep up with your continuing education. Career paths. We heard a lot about Kevin's journey as a hospital pharmacist. Pharmacy technicians, those regulated healthcare professionals, have an ever-expanding role. The most recent was pharmacy technicians in Ontario may now take additional training and are able to be involved in immunizations and administering vaccines like the COVID vaccine. Other roles for pharmacy technicians might involve drug plan management with third parties, our insurance parties, sterile compounding careers with in places like Fresenius, Kabi, Kalia are always looking for individuals. senior techs and supervisory roles in hospitals, compliance packaging for long-term care. Again, you might want to sit on apply for to represent a group in the Ontario College of Pharmacists. Sales implementation for pharmacy software companies, PacMed, Omnicell. There are a lot of career paths for pharmacy technicians beyond working in community pharmacy. So your path? Graduates from the pharmacy technician program have found that the program itself helps them understand the healthcare system in Canada and in Ontario. Your jurisprudence and ethics courses will help you understand Ontario and Canadian legislation that may help with your jurisprudence exams with the Ontario College of Pharmacists. Some of the international graduates that have come through Humber College have gone on to qualify and work as pharmacists, and some of them actually have come back to Humber College to teach part-time in the pharmacy technician program. Other roles, community pharmacies, hospital pharmacies, operating room technicians, narcotic and controlled drug technicians, IV additives, chemo prep, and drug studies was one that Kevin mentioned. So the opportunities are numerous. You have to keep your eyes open and look for those opportunities. So in looking for those opportunities, communication skills, verbal skills, written skills. Meet other professionals like you're doing now with Ontario Heroes. Join pharmacy associations. There's the Canadian Association of Pharmacy Technicians, specifically for Canadian technicians. The Ontario Pharmacists Association. There's many professional organizations. Continuing education. Canadian Healthcare Network, Pharmacy 5 and 5, Tech Talk. Continue up with that education. Document them. Keep a record of those that you've done, where you realize that, I don't know too much about all these COVID vaccines coming out. Then start looking for continuing education opportunities. Read about it, find out. And volunteer. Health organizations, other organizations, Ontario Heroes. The opportunities are endless, and it will help you develop other skills that can help you with that career path change. So I hope your journey is professionally fulfilling and takes you through many twists and turns to new and different challenges. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have, or a couple, so we can move on.
Any questions for Sharon? You can unmute and maybe ask one or two questions. Okay.
Sorry. Hi, Sharon.
Yes.
I just had a question. So is it necessary that we should take the technician program to go ahead with the technician regulatory exam? Or is there a way that we can directly, if we are like a pharmacy graduate from back home, is there a way that we can directly write the licensing exam for the pharmacy technician?
There is a pathway where you can go directly to licensing as a pharmacy technician. You would have to check both the Ontario College of Pharmacists and the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada to see the details.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Sharon? Okay. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing your wisdom and some background on the pharmacy technician program and some opportunities for individuals to think about as they consider their career paths. Now I'm going to take the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Bhavin Desai, a man who wears many hats. He's in his dispensary right now, finishing his shift. He's a registered pharmacist in Ontario since 2008. He has a certified diabetes educator since 2012. He owns a couple of pharmacies and has coached over hundreds of international pharmacy graduates for the PBC OSCE exams. Being an immigrant and an international pharmacy graduate himself, he has experienced the struggles of getting licensed as a pharmacy firsthand. How many of you here would like to learn about the insight that can make your journey easier? How many of you would like to know about what mistakes should be avoided at all costs? How many of you would like to know what needs to be done to ensure successful transition into the healthcare system? Here's the man with all those answers. Bhavin, take it away. Would you like me to put your presentation or can you share your screen?
I can share my screen. First of all, Hina, thank you so much for such a generous introduction. I don't know if I really deserve that. Can you see it or no?
I can't see it, but what I can do is you should be able to share your screen, but if you're not,
just let me just go back.
I can put it up for you.
Yeah, okay. I can now do it.
Okay.
So, Hina, thank you so much for such a generous introduction. I don't know I'm worthy of that or not. But what I would like to do is share my journey, and hopefully it will resonate with some of the people who are participating today, and hopefully it will help some of them to pave their way, path forward. So without much ado, let's start. So 2005, that's the year I landed in Canada. So the first year, all my interest was because back when I was in India, I was into the marketing, product management. So that's what I was trying to get into. Nothing major worked out except for some call center jobs and labor job in the factory. So I said, I need to change my strategy, maybe need to rethink. And that's where I got decided to get licensed as a pharmacist. And more exciting things, more twists and turns were waiting for me. So passed my evaluating exam the first time, in the first attempt, failed PBC at MCQ once, passed it, then attempted OSCE, failed, passed. So I know what I did wrong, what I shouldn't have done, and definitely now when I look back, I think I could have actually, cut down a lot of my agony and a lot of time, and I could have done it in a much, much better way. Eventually got licensed in 2008, and I had a $20,000 debt. So I was actually very concerned that I had $20,000 of debt. So I met a friend of mine, he was actually my mentor, who passed from University of Toronto, and he said, don't worry. When we graduated, we had a debt of 60,000, so you're better than us. So, again, a good perspective of how to look at things, but it was great. And, I definitely got a lot of help from people all the way. Some more twists. So finally, I was thinking, hey, 2008, I got my license and life is going to be a fairy tale. Of course, I can't say no. I mean, honestly, I'm living a Canadian dream. Can't deny that fact. 2009 started PBC, OSCE and OSPE coaching company called SolarX, along with one of my partners. So that was the first thing. I went out. Obviously, I got a job as a pharmacist in Shoppers Drug Mart as a community pharmacy in the community pharmacy. In 2012, I was very keen to make my own mark, and I said I have to have my own store. Well, I started, but somehow the disaster struck. The things didn't work out well, and I had to take some losses, come out. 2015, opened up my another store. Meanwhile, I had moved to Costco and opened my first store in 2015, which right now I'm still sitting there. 2016 and 17, two pharmacy projects failed. So again, some twists and turns. 2018, opened a second location for Allwell Pharmacy. Um, just one second. Let me see if I can make it into a full screen. So again, as I said, it has been a good roller coaster ride, but trust me, I'm very, very happy with all the journey that I had since the last 15 years. And trust me, it's a dream that has come true for me. And the biggest joy is not owning two pharmacies or making more money, but truly seeing that you are able to make a difference in someone's life. I think that to me has been the biggest joy wherever I have worked. Like whenever you make a difference in someone's life, that feeling, no money, nothing else can replicate or be equal to. So that has been an amazing journey so far for me. And again, why do I share my journey? It's not so much to brag that I have come so far. It's just probably to inspire confidence in people who are just starting their journey. If someone like me can manage to do this, I'm sure it is possible for any one of you to do that here. And yes, the first 3 years, as they say, first 1,000 days, not years, the first 1,000 days are very tough in Canada as a new immigrant. I think it's probably tough for anyone anywhere, and so probably it is here. But if you stay focused, if you do the part that you need to do, if you put in the work, results will show. And if nothing else, I am the living proof of that. A couple of things I would like to share, especially people who are just starting out their licensing process. I landed in 2005 and eventually got licensed in 2008. So it took about 3.5 years for me to get licensed. And of course, as I said, I was working in the factory, I was working in call centers, and then eventually I got a job as a volunteer position in the pharmacy as a pharmacy assistant, and then got a part-time paying job. So obviously it was very painful. It was hard, and of course, like the longer the duration it was, because I flunked the exam a couple of times, once the MCQ and once the OSCE. So obviously the process lengthened. What should have been a shorter process, it lengthened. If I had to do it all over again, I would figure out, I know there is a better way of doing it, how to make it shorter. So to quickly share, let's say if someone who is not yet in Canada, and if you are well positioned, let's say because when I was coaching with SolarX, I had a lot of patients, not patients again, I have a lot of people who were coming from Middle East, and they were like, okay, my job is 150,000. So I said, don't come here till you put through at least first or second exam, get it done through, and then you can, come back when all the process is done. So, I mean, this is something you can think about. In 2005, when I came in, I just had no clue. And at that time, we were using the Bell's dial-up internet. So it took 1 minute to load the front page. Now you have all the information at the click of a button, click of a mouse, should I say, and you can plan it. And of course, if anyone needs advice, I'll be happy to share my email address, my phone. We can always talk. But that's something I would consider for people who are not yet into Canada. If you're already in Canada, there is still a way. Make sure you use some good prep course to help you. Because when I come from India, and whatever the 4 years of pharmacy I studied, the focus was more on pharmaceuticals. Because eventually most of the pharmacists were expected to go into the manufacturing sector. And I remember for every single question they would ask me, my side effects would be nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Because we didn't care, honestly. And now when I came to Canada, I realized that's the most important thing. I need to share this with my patients, what to expect. So it was a totally different perspective. So when you, two things, if you basically get a position to work in pharmacy, and if you get a prep program, I think it could take you really shorten the process and quickly top up with the real Canadian knowledge that you need to get through the exams. There are things that worked for me, there are things that didn't work for me. Obviously, what worked for me was I had no hesitation to put in the work. And actually, when I told my first employer, he said, you are only working 8 hours. So I said, no problem. I'll come half an hour early and half an hour I'll go late. And he said, I cannot pay you for that. I said, I'm not asking for the pay. So anywhere I went, I just wanted to put in more work. And whatever the time I was there, I was willing to just do more work, learn whatever it took to understand every aspect of the pharmacy, not just the patient side, the business side as well. I was willing to learn from the very best. I went, I met people, and I said, okay, whatever they could share, I was very happy. And in return, whatever the work I could do for them, I was willing to do. Third thing, stay positive. I know a lot of people, even I was going through the process, they were saying, oh, why are you wanting to become a pharmacist? It's such a long process. And what are you going to do after all that? Why don't you get into this, change the track, and maybe you will have this job and you will have this. And I just basically wanted to stay away from those people. I'm glad I stayed away. And that's how I could manage to come so far. And finally, what really worked was patience. There were times things were not going my way, but you have to have that patience. Sometimes it takes a bit longer. The Canadian process compared to the US process is longer. It can be very challenging because the exams are relatively hard. The exams are every 6 months. In US, you can write the exam next week. So, if you flunk, it's not a big deal. Take the exam next week. So, things are different here. So a bit of patience definitely will help. What didn't work for me, two important things. And I wish to share this with you because it's a bit embarrassing, honestly, but I hope that if you are experiencing that problem, I hope you can recognize it and avoid it. So my first was, for the first 6 months, I was not really focused. I was trying to do too many things. And I didn't make up my mind that, I should become a registered pharmacist. If I had made my mind 6 months before, as soon as I landed, it would have been a lot easier for me. Secondly, let go of the past. When I left India, I was a brand manager managing like $10 million business, $20 million business. So I thought I had achieved so much. I had proved myself so much. Now, when I started working as a volunteer, and the first day the employer said, oh, why don't you, clean the pharmacy? And I felt really like, oh, really? Am I doing that? But, and, I think a part of the reason would be because I thought that, I had achieved so much. Why have to start from the bottom here? But, that's what it is. You are in a new place. They need to make sure that you are able to work within the system, respect the system, and make sure that the patients don't get harmed. Patient gets the same benefit as any other pharmacist coming out of Canadian school is there. So, their thinking is right. But the key thing for me was, and what I would suggest anyone here is, let go of your past. Don't stick to it. Oh, I was a account manager. I was a executive director. Okay, great. Here you are here by your will. And so make sure if you have to prove yourself again, don't worry, don't get concerned, let go of the past, work again. I think to me, if you can let go of your past and stay focused, no one can stop you. So I think I've covered most of the things, but here are the key things. So let go of the past, I already discussed, accept the new, so which is the new Canadian system. Be willing to prove yourself time and again, I covered that. Communication skills. So when I came here first, I was asking, people were saying, how is the weather? And I said, why people are talking about weather? I don't understand. What is this about weather? Then it occurred to me it's what is called breaking the ice and talking to people. But it's important. If you are in Canada and if you are going to serve the Canadian community, then you have to know the way they speak and what they mean. It took me a while to understand that, but it is very, very important that we are able to understand that communication is a critical skill. And even when you're preparing for your exams, especially when you come to OSCE, I think it is one of the skills. If you are not developed, you will really, really find it hard. Focus, as I mentioned before. So, don't try to do too many things. Decide one thing and stick to it. And typical, I'm a Gujarati Indian, and Gujarati Indians are known for, they are very stingy with their money. They don't like to part with their money. And I can understand. And also, if you're an immigrant, you are coming with very little money. So it's very hard to part with money. But trust me, sometimes it's, you have to spend money so that you can buy time. I was taught by my parents to spend money where it is needed, and it never bothered me. But I had a lot of friends who studied together with me, and they took about 3 more years to get through the exams than what it took me. The reason, I have got $15,000 from India because that's what the Canadian government wants me to get here when I come to Canada. But I don't want to spend a single money of that. Whatever I earn, I will spend, but this 15,000, I won't spare. So as a result, if they had to take a prep program, and let's say it took $5,000 or $2,000, they studied, they worked for 3 months, 4 months, so that they could get that money. I was more than happy to spend the $15,000 that I came with, and that's the reason I was able to get through the process a bit faster. So it's a very controversial advice to give, but trust me, find the right anyone or anything that will help to reduce the time. Don't hesitate to spend the money. And the way I look at it is this: if I got licensed 3 years before them, actually I make $300,000 more than them. And what did I spend more? Just $15,000 more. So to me, I think it's a great investment. I spent that money. I had very limited, but it took me to where I wanted to be much faster. So my suggestion to you, I know it's very controversial advice to give, but that's one of the things I will definitely urge you to consider. And finally, very happy to connect out to you. A couple of pharmacies I have here, but just this location. So if you are passing by, with COVID, some restrictions are there, but don't hesitate. You can come by. This is the phone number. You can reach out to me. Text is better and we can talk. Email is there. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And right now, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take the questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Bhavin?
Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, so right now I'm preparing for my MCQ as well as OSCE for this May exam. So the main concern is that, we have a rule here that, you have to clear it in the first attempt, or else you have to undergo the IPG program, which is pretty expensive, as you told, it's a 15,000 CAD. Or else, we might have to switch the province, get the license there, and again come back. So thinking of that journey itself make us so much, stressful. So you have any suggestion for the same?
Well, as I said, when I was there, The IPG program was voluntary. We didn't have to, it was not mandatory. So we were lucky to get away with it. And I know it has its own benefit. The cost and the timing are issue, like 6 months and $18,000. I know it's expensive, especially for people coming new to the country. Couple of things. Make sure you get the right help. There are a lot of prep programs out there. Make sure you search and find the one that works for you. Speak to them. Second, don't take the exams lightly. I have experienced a lot of colleagues who are studying with me. Oh, I want to take the exam to see how the exam is. Please don't ever do that. You have only limited 3 sets of exams that are available to you. And as you said, if you flunk the first time, then you would need to take the IPG, right? So make sure you put in the time, put in the extra time, study well, study individually, study in a group, and make sure you do a lot of practice. So that's the key. And again, don't take the pressure. Remember, if this thing doesn't work, you can always go out of province and get licensed and come back. And remember, at the end of the day, even if you had to take IPG program, think about this way. Maybe you will get delayed by 6 months. Maybe you will be poor by $18,000. But when you become licensed pharmacist, and let's say assuming average age of people getting licensed is 35, and if you work till 65, and assuming you make 1 million every 100,000 every year, you will be making a lot of money in your lifetime. So this is a small change. So don't let it bother you too much. Yes, I understand where you're coming from, that you want to get through in the first attempt. And I said what you need to do, but don't take too much pressure, because sometimes that can affect your performance adversely.
Thank you, Bhavin, for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Just to add to that, studying for those 2 exams are completely different. People try to do it at the same time, and I find that they're not very successful. And the people that I've trained are the ones that actually failed because they decided to take it at the same time, and they take the OSCE for granted. And communication is so important in that exam that you can't undermine just knowing your knowledge, because knowledge is not what they're looking for. It's communication. How are you going to communicate that within the next 5 minutes you have? And how are you going to get all those, things across and gather that information, right? So it is really important, unless you are studying, even if you're studying 24/7, it's really hard to focus on studying for both at the same time. Take your time. It may be a delay, but you may do better results while having a mentor, volunteering in a pharmacy, getting some exposure on, how a prescription is filled, and just talking to people. This is the first time sometimes I find that people are talking to individuals doing standardized OSCE, and even saying hello can be overwhelming for certain individuals. So don't take it for lightly, as Bhavin said. And I think, thank you, Bhavin, for sort of highlighting that we learn from our failure rather than our success. And that, the way to success, it will pass through massive failures in some situations. And, we just have to keep trying. And so thank you for inspiring all of us.
Over here. Thank you so much, Hina, for thinking about me.
Any other questions for Bhavin? I know there was a couple of questions on how to study for the PBC MCQ. Again, it's not just memorizing the TC or RX files, it's also application. So I think, having an IPG program is actually a good, sort of venue to keep you, even if you've done clinical sort of studies in India, you've done a PharmD clinical rotations. What is required during these, exams is application of your knowledge. And then until you start thinking about how you would apply that knowledge to that specific scenario, patient case, you're gonna lag. You may have half of it, which is memorizing, which we're all good at as pharmacists trained, knowing side effects, but you also need to be able to apply the knowledge. And I think, I think there's a lot of specific questions about how to study, and maybe we'll take that up at a subsequent session. This is our first session, and maybe we can provide some guidance and some documentation around there. Any other questions for Bhavin? Last question. Well, thank you, Bhavin, for sharing some wisdom with the group. And
thank you, Hina. And just one thing, I just saw Sony as probably one of the speakers who is lined up. I actually took his program when I came. So he is actually much knowledgeable and wiser person than I am. I have not spoken to him because he went to Florida to earn his PhD or something like that. So I haven't spoken to him in a long time.
Well, he's the next speaker. So I'm going to take the time to introduce Sony Palus. He graduated from the University of Kerala, India, with a Master's of Pharmacy, and completed his doctorates of pharmacy from Florida, like Bhavin mentioned. Sony is a practicing community pharmacist for the last 18 years with a specific focus on diabetes. And that is very prevalent in our population. So that's great. He is involved in pharmacy practice research and has published research papers. He has received 2 awards from OPA, the Pfizer Bowl of Hygieia in 2014, and the Exceptional Achievement in Research and Academia Award in 2015. He serves as an elected member of boards of directors at the Ontario College of Pharmacists, and also serves in various committees at the College of Pharmacy as well. He is currently serving as a member of the Board of Governors at Mohawk College in Hamilton. He currently practicing pharmacy as a manager at the Sherman IDA Pharmacy in Hamilton. Take it away, Sony.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure. Okay, let me just get my... Okay, so hope you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Bhavin. Like, it's been like a long time that I have seen, right? So thank you. And thank you, Hina and Praveen. Such a wonderful event. Kudos to Ontario Heroes. And this kind of program is very essential to get familiar with the Canadian healthcare system, as well as pharmacy practice. I think a majority of our participants are international graduates, and some of them are in India as well as in Canada, I believe. So I quickly, because of the time that I just will go with quickly with my journey, right? So I came in Canada in 2002, then immediately took the evaluating exam and qualifying exam, and I got licensed in 2003. Then after that, I worked as a staff pharmacist in one of the chain, that's Rexall. And after 2 years, then I went on to another chain, that's Shoppers Drug Mart. Then after a year, I took the franchisee. The franchisee owner was then about 10, 12 years. I managed that business as well as practiced as pharmacist. In the meantime, in 2006, I thought I went back and study. So then I got an opportunity to go to US, and then me and my wife also, she's also a pharmacist, and then we both went and took PharmD. That was actually a wonderful experience. Then we learned a lot. And then recently, then I moved into more kind of clinical setup. then we opened our own pharmacy with a medical team and with the other the healthcare providers. So that's where I am. I'm just going to do a quick PowerPoint presentation, just in a different direction. Like what I wanted to, discuss tonight. It's just like some of the things that we do as a community pharmacist. Like most often when we talk about community pharmacy, we often talk about dispensing aspect. And there's like a lot more we can do beyond the counter, like we call it as, rather than the traditional role. What are the things that we as pharmacists can do? So quickly, I'm going to share my screen.
I'll share your screen for you. So
That's all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay. So the community pharmacists. So one thing that we need to understand, and we are very proud of. If you look at it, especially in Canada and US, pharmacists are the most trusted healthcare professional. In fact, we are actually higher than in rating than doctors and any other healthcare providers. So there is a reason why we are in that high trusted, public trusted professional. The reason is we did a good work in last 15-20 years in terms of providing services to our public, and then so the contributions that we made into healthcare. That's the reason that the public actually selected, through the survey, we are the most trusted healthcare professionals. And that's one of the reason that we get this reputation. In fact, that's one of the reason that we get good pay as well compared to so many other countries. And if you look at it like in North America and Europe, like most of the time, like the pharmacists are well paid compared to the other countries. So this based on what we contribute to our healthcare system. So that's some of the things that I wanted to share with you. So one of the important thing that's beyond counting pills that we can actually do is chronic disease management. Us we are like one of the area that we focus in our pharmacy, in our clinic, is diabetes. So that like I don't want to give a lecture about diabetes and how bad it is, like everybody knows, but the fact is, when we look at it, how many Canadians, or if in India, how many people are controlled with the diabetes, and what we can actually how we can actually help these patients to get into their target or disease, it's actually controlled in order to reduce the risk of getting dialysis, reduce the risk of getting stroke, reduce the risk of getting heart problems, amputations, so much the complications that people can get it. So quickly, what are the things that we can actually do is one of the main thing that we do. Most of the time, these patients, they take multiple medications. So they have diabetes often comes with high cholesterol, the high blood pressure, and other endocrine diseases. And most of the cases, like they will take at least 6-7 medications. And when you talk to this patient, when you manage their medication, and these patients, like sometimes they don't even know why they are taking their medication. So it's actually your role to sit with them, explain what are these medications and how this medication is going to help them, and what happens like if you miss that medication, and then what the benefit they are going to get if they take the medication. This is one of the things that we usually see in the clinic. They will think that like I take 5 or 6 medications, what happens if I don't take the medication? So then you can tell them what's going to be your risk if you don't take this medication. Then you in 5 or 6 years you ended up in dialysis, or you ended up in having a heart attack. So these are the education component that the counseling, education, medication awareness that the pharmacist can provide. Because in fact, the pharmacists are the people like these patients are going to see more frequently than their doctors. When they may go to the doctors and they may have few minutes of their time, like sometimes like it's only 5 minutes, and they will write down whatever the medication they need and then hand over the prescription, and that's it. So it's our responsibility to educate patients properly on their medication. And then the other thing in Ontario, especially in Ontario and most of the provinces, that we are allowed to adjust their medication. So how to adjust the medication in our practice, what we will be looking at it when we counsel the patients or when we assess the patient, we will look at their lab values, the last lab values, and if their A1C is not a target, and if they're taking the medication, and then we can always adjust their medication. If, like I say, for example, metformin, if they're only taking 500 milligram twice a day, they can go up to 2 grams a day. This is an example. And then if the patients are on insulin, then we have to adjust their insulin doses merely like maybe every 3 months, or like in some cases every day, that we have to adjust their insulin doses until we get the right dose and their A1Cs at target. Then if they need, and like a lot of times, like in our practice, then they are not taking enough medication to control their condition. So in that case, we can make clinical recommendation to the doctor to start a new medication, or discontinue some medication and start a new medication. We can make the recommendation to the doctors. And most of the time, like I would say like 80% of the time, the doctors are very receptive for with your recommendation, and then they will accept the recommendation, then you can implement. And then you can always review their lab values, which is available through a portal. Especially like it's in Ontario, we have a portal called Clinical Connect. You can actually go and review all the labs, all the diagnoses, then their medication. Like you'll get the complete history of the patient, and then you can review their condition with that details. So the important thing is that like you need to acquire this knowledge in order to provide the best clinical care. Then the other thing is the other area that especially the community pharmacists can offer is specialty clinics. There are several types of specialty clinics operating in different pharmacies. One of the area that we focus is addiction management. Us, like most of you know, like the Canada is actually going through a really bad opioid crisis. It's like almost 7 to 8 patients every day in Canada. It's admitted to hospital, and 300 to 400 people die every year because of the opioid crisis. And then there are several, like this pharmacists actually play huge role in helping them to bring back to their lives. So to help them, what we do is in our clinic, we operate a clinic called opioid agonist treatment, and that's called methadone treatment and Suboxone. This is the two drugs that we most commonly use in our clinic. And this patient, when we started this program like about 6 months ago, and we almost have 60 to 70 patients in our clinic. This patients has to come and see the doctor twice a week, and then we collect their urine sample and then do the testing, drug testing, and then initiate the treatment. And then pharmacists are in the forefront, and then we discuss with these patients, and then we adjust the medication and we give the recommendation to the doctors. Then we work with the doctors, and sometimes the patient has to come every day and dosing. In the meantime, this patient population, they're suffering like with so many other things, the addiction, mental health disorder, and so many other things. So we can connect with their psychiatrist, counseling, psychologist, and different internal medicine doctor, and then to help them in bring back to their life, and then start their job and different things. So this is one of the main area that we can play a huge role. Then there is there is new area that especially in some of the provinces in Canada that's already implemented. In Ontario, it's coming in soon. That's something called minor ailments. Minor ailments treatment is there are some conditions, especially if a patient have cold sore or bladder infection or acid, GERD. In this condition, you don't really need to go to the doctor and get assessed and then get a prescription and then come back to the pharmacy and fill that prescription. In this case, pharmacist has the skill and knowledge to diagnose and initiate the treatment. Say, for example, if a patient is having uncomplicated urinary tract infection, bladder infection, they can go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist can do the assessment and then confirm that's the uncomplicated urinary tract infection, and then start the treatment right away. They start the antibiotic or whatever the treatment that they need. And this already been in practice in Alberta, in I believe Nova Scotia, and some of the other provinces. In Ontario, it will be coming in probably like next year or even in sooner. So then we can initiate that treatment, and then our role is to get into a more kind of treatment. And then writing prescription, and then giving into sorry, my son is coming in between. So the other area that we can, the pharmacists can actually play a big role is prescription renewal. In most of the provinces, the pharmacists can actually renew and extend their prescription without seeing the doctor. So that's also an opportunity that we can assess when the patient comes in. We can assess their condition and make sure that it's their conditions, it's stable, like diabetes, high blood pressure, thyroid, and review their lab values, and then we can extend their prescription up to 6 months. Like recently, it's actually been up to a year. Pharmacists can renew their prescription. And then lastly, the one of the other area that I don't have it in my slide, but the other area is vaccination. So in Canada, the last few years, pharmacists are in forefront in providing flu shot. Now, in Monday onwards, like we will be like a lot of pharmacists are will be providing COVID vaccine. So that's one of the other opportunity that we can get into the vaccination program, travel vaccine and the other vaccines. So then we can provide that service as well. So the whatever that we can actually provide in terms of clinical service is endless. Again, like it depends on where you work and what type of practice you are involved in. You can be involved in that. And plus, like so finally, like what I wanted to advise for newcomers and who wanted to get into in pharmacy practice, the only thing that you need to focus to sharpen your skill sets. When I came in Canada in 2002 and 2003, there were pharmacists, like there was a huge shortage of pharmacists, and then as long as you have a license, you will get a job. But things are quite different now. When I was in Shoppers at the like in 2015 onwards, we will be looking for, like now most of the pharmacies are looking for, like the owners are looking for the pharmacists with right skill sets. So there was, like previously there was a question about when you write the exam and then if you fail in your first chance, whether I need to take a CPS program from the UFT. I strongly encourage you to take the UFT's the IPG program. That will give you a really competitive advantage in the marketplace, because now people will be employers will be looking at your skill set, not like your license. It was like quite different. The market is quite different. If I'm an employer, like I do, like I give training and supervision to UFT students and University of Waterloo students as well, I can see the difference. So if I have a choice to hire a person who have completed IPG program and versus those who didn't complete the IPG program, I will always go with a person with IPG program, because they come with that skill sets and the experience and the knowledge. So it's not a waste of money, and don't look at to get the license quickly, but you get the right skill sets so you can practice clinically. And then as an employer, like I will be looking for a person, a pharmacist who can practice in this capacity. So I'll be looking at a person they coming into providing, taking over my the pharmacy sorry.
Don't worry. I'm just getting my presentation up. Keep going, Sony.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, so that will be one of my advice. So then once you have that skill sets, do whatever you can in order to sharpen your skill sets. And then that's a way that you can be you can be successful in your career, with your career, and finding that will be more easy to get a job in your marketplace. And with that, I'm going to end up my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if there is.
Yeah. Thank you, Sony, for some excellent pointers for those that are coming into the country and are foreign trained pharmacists. So I think I just wanted to take a quick opportunity. I know we're running very late to sort of skip through some of these slides, which will be made available to anyone who wants them, but to really review a couple of points related to licensing processes and requirements, because I know there were tons of questions around what the requirements are for Ontario, Canada. And there were some questions related to career paths. And I think our speakers have highlighted the importance of, there are many career paths. As long as you find an opportunity and you are motivated and you're a self-learner. So you can see here on our slide here, obviously the most common one for a foreign trained pharmacist is community, but certainly there's industry as well as hospital practice. Hospital practice tends to be a little bit more challenging just because the requirement is that you have a pharmacy residency. But however, I have seen individuals that have started at any, like Kevin had mentioned earlier, in, areas outside of GTA and then transitioned into GTA. Taking any positions. It could be a distribution pharmacist. It could be a part-time pharmacist working an evening shift from 4 to 9. And those are the type of transitions that you might look for. And you'd get the training. So that's been highlighted. In terms of where do I start, in terms of enrolling as a candidate, it's important that you look into this website, the Pharmacist Gateway Canada. I have the link here. And what you will have with that is national ID, which is required to apply for the PBC, and for document evaluation, creating your profile and tracking your progress. You upload all your language test reports in that platform, and there is obviously a enrollment fee charged with that website as well. Here in the slide, you can see what it looks like. I've just taken a snapshot of the Pharmacy Gateway Canada, and they highlight the specific requirements for the document evaluation, the evaluating examination, and the qualifying examination. And you can go through each tab, how to enroll as a candidate, the language requirement, which again, in the next few slides, you might see what those numbers look like. I think there was a question related to that. The website also differentiates what the requirements are for a pharmacy technician versus a pharmacist, as well. Policy and procedure. There was a question related to how long between the exams. There is a 3-year rule between the two parts of the qualifying examination, unless you have a special circumstance in which you can actually ask for an extension, but you have to submit that request in writing at the attention of the assistant registrar. And there are some highlights as to what those reasons could be: health concerns that would have prevented you from attempting to write the exam, and supporting documentation from a healthcare provider overseeing that care. Again, these extensions are made on the basis of other personal and other financial circumstances will not be considered. Candidates who previously were granted an extension to the 3-year rules are not allowed to extend further at that point. One of the biggest, based on my experience, one of the biggest challenges I've seen with a foreign trained pharmacist is the language. The communication skills are very important. I think multiple speakers today highlighted the importance of having those communication skills, and proficiency in the English language is really important, not just for the OSCE, but for securing a job prospect after you're passing your PBCs as well. Part of the OSCE is to look for communication, and if you read a lot about communication, 90% is nonverbal communication. So nonverbal communications are as important as verbal communication. So listening skills are quite important for that exam. Here you can see the highlighted score. I think there was a question on the chat as to what the minimum score should be for the various the IELTS. So you can see here what that score looks like. Again, all this information is on that website. Other resources for language proficiency, you can go through each website to look for those criteria as well. In terms of applying for the Pharmacy Regulatory Authority, so that would be the Ontario College of Pharmacists. Again, you must directly apply to the Ontario College of Pharmacists or the regulatory authority that you want to be licensed in addition to applying through the Pharmacist Gateway Canada. Each jurisdiction has its variation and unique conditions for licensures. And again, those are highlighted in the NAPRA website if you just click on the NAPRA website as well. And it is important that you can change your designation. So if you wanted to, move to Newfoundland and practice, but you had initially set to practice in Ontario, you can actually go back and change that designation once the application is completed. But it might take a few processes in that sense. You can add another regulatory board, but you cannot delete the initial one. NAPRA, the website has all of the Canadian Pharmacy Regulatory Authority, so you can click on the top right-hand side corner of the information on which province you want to look for the requirements. So that's a great avenue to make sure that you have those that information. Now, I know there are lots of programs out there for sort of prep programs, and I used to teach one as well, or I oversaw one. But I think at this point, it's about the right program that will get you success. And sometimes, pharmacy prep programs, there's a lot of things you need to sort of look for when you consider some of these. I'm not here to endorse any, but I think it's important that you recognize that they're businesses as well. So I think it's important to choose something that will get you results. And my bets are on, making sure that you understand how a pharmacist practice and the pharmacy examination will look like. So having that taste of what a UFT student or a Waterloo student gets, we get a combination of independent studies, seminars, case studies, role-playing, simulated work experiences. You're integrating with a team of other pharmacists. All of those things, the networking you have with the, faculty, the teachers, the students is all part of that learning. And we know we have studies, and I've listed a couple here, and that show that your chances of failure or your increased opportunity for networking are increased with the pharmacy bridging program offered by UFT. So it is something that you should consider. I know the cost is an issue at times. And also think about the time commitments for licensure. In a study in 2008, this was back then, the average length of time was 26 months for licensure for an IPG students, and several factors that are involved in and that can vary that process from one candidate to another. So making sure that your document evaluation process, it takes time to get these documents from your university to the regulatory board, making sure that you have all those requirements right from the get-go. The exam is offered only twice a year, so making sure that you apply and you have all that paperwork in time so you can write it. And again, you're only permitted a certain number of attempts. So try not to write both at the same time because it may require a lot of studying. And then there's also the immigration process, and Chris will touch upon that for those that had questions. But certainly those are the things that could delay and cause some delay in your timing for writing and licensure. There's a calculator of a cost and convenient calculator that will figure out the time and the cost to help estimate, what it's going to take on Pharmacist Gateway. So you could use that. And be aware of the time limits and deadlines for each step. Some provinces only accept language proficiency test results that are less than 2 years old. You may need to recomplete those language credentials. So try to map it out. Here's a great summary of what the processes are, what the time frames are. And again, all of this is on the websites that I have provided. And again, there is also some hints and resources for those that are coming into Canada in terms of immigration as well on that website. In terms of the requirements for the Ontario College of Pharmacists, you can go onto the Ontario College of Pharmacists or any other colleges in any province to see what those requirements are, the specifics. There is also a PACE program, which is part of that evaluation to see, how you do in practice. That is new. And you have to make sure that you are able to pass that as well. So having that IPG program will help you with this PACE requirement, which is now as part of the licensing for the province as well. In this slide, you have some resources that I have highlighted. All those screenshots that you have seen are part of these 4 websites that I have taken. So please spend the time to sort of think about spending some time on going over what the requirements are, whether you have all the documents. There were some questions pre-lecture on opportunities for careers in pharmacovigilance. So I took some time to look at where those were applied. Here's an example of a private sort of course that is available for pharmacovigilance. Again, some of these private courses or certificate courses are available, have career opportunities within their platform, and they're able to provide that employment job seeking opportunity within their own platform. Finally, I think one of the biggest suggestions that I have is to find mentorship. Shadow a practicing pharmacist, whether it's in retail. Don't just assume that, what you've heard is what happens. And you learn a lot from just observing and shadowing. Speak, network. This is a great platform to network. Ontario Heroes is really here to help with system navigation, care coordination, and complementing the current Ontario healthcare system, but as well as providing this network and mentorship. So I think it's very valuable to sort of give back to the community, and all these speakers have taken their Friday night to give back to the community. And I think as we move forward, it's important to also share your experiences, whether it's success or failure. It's really important to share those with those that may not have had those opportunities. It is important to continue doing that. And then, get the real world experience. If you're writing the OSCE and if you've never been in a pharmacy setting, then take the opportunity. You may not get paid, but it is an investment in ensuring that you are able to feel confident during the exam and understand the expectations and the responsibility of a pharmacist. Communication is a great skill to have. And it's really important, especially now that we are, considered as pharmacists the most trusted or the most available, healthcare professionals during this whole pandemic. The individuals that were open, where the patients were coming to, were the pharmacists. Family physicians were working from home. So we as pharmacists are able to identify multiple drug-related issues. And COVID just sort of gave us that foundation as to how important and how impactful we could be as pharmacists. And if we really put ourselves out there, we can do a great achievement in terms of enhancing pharmaceutical care. Questions about studying for the PBC, I think the IPG course is what I would recommend, and group studying with others, learning from others, and then learn to learn well. I know that's a cliche, but you have to identify gaps in your knowledge, find ways to rectify them through various avenues. And it's not learning what you already know, but it's also understanding how to learn and the science behind how to learn effectively. You could have somebody study for 7 hours, but if they're not taking a break, focusing on retaining that information may be hard. Ask, if you're volunteering, ask the mentor for regular feedback and look and listen to what they're saying so you can improve on your skills and knowledge. It's one thing to ask for feedback, but if you're not going to incorporate it because you don't understand it, then that becomes, a harder thing for the mentor as well as the person. You just need to learn how to learn well. And commitment, time commitment. This is not something that you can just take lightly. Studying for this exams, the 2 exams are quite different and takes time. So, it's making sure that you have the time and the dedication to embark on this journey, and ensuring that you're confident when you are writing that exam. And so I know we've gone well over our time, but at this time I wanted to take the opportunity to reintroduce Chris. I know Rinku had introduced Chris, but I wanted to make sure that I kind of gave some preamble on Chris. Chris Laminer is a barrister solicitor, and she immigrated to Canada in 2012, and through her perseverance successfully was called to the bar here in 2015. Chris is a passionate lawyer and believes in contributing to the community, including Ontario Heroes. And I will let her take on some questions. She's got a great resume, and she's got a lot of experience in, personal law injury, immigration, refugee law, real estate law, and has practiced that in multiple settings internationally as well. But I know there were lots of questions around, immigration. So if anyone has any questions for her, this is your time.
Thank you so much, Hina, for doing such a wonderful job at moderating and presenting. And I understand that we are running a bit late, and I'm more than happy to take on questions with regards to immigration. So I'm not sure if anybody has questions right now, but there were some questions that did come through when we were doing the sign up for the session. So just very quickly, as Hina introduced me, well, I'm a lawyer here and I do practice immigration. It's one of my areas of practices. So yes, I can throw some light on your immigrating to Canada as if you are a pharmacist. So essentially what you do need to know is that there is a national occupation classification under which occupations are classified, and they are recognized by the Canadian government for helping you immigrate. So pharmacist, essentially, and a lot of different names like clinical pharmacist, industrial pharmacist, retail pharmacist. There are so many of them. I'm sorry. I am not very familiar with all the different titles, but yes, and it falls under the NOC code 3131. One very important distinction with regards to pharmacists, or like somebody who is qualified, who's studied pharmacy, and any other professionals, their evaluation or the educational credential assessment is done through PEBC. You would have heard that term throughout this session. So the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada, that is the body to which you would be sending your educational credentials for evaluation, unlike any other organization like WES or ICAS, to name a few. So that's an important distinction. So this is more for your federal skilled worker express entry immigration. And the other two provinces that do have pharmacists recognized are Manitoba, which does have an in-demand skills category in which pharmacists are included. And British Columbia also has a pathway, and that is mainly for under their healthcare category. Pharmacists are recognized, but of course you do need to have a job offer from a designated employer. And of course, these things do have their particular requisites. But just if somebody was interested in immigrating, and if you are a pharmacist, yes, you do have an opportunity under the federal skilled worker or your PNP programs that I just mentioned. So that was in a brief that I just wanted to touch upon immigration part, because those were some questions that came along. And I have been entrusted with the responsibility to actually do the vote of thanks on behalf of Ontario Heroes. And it is with absolute pleasure that and gratitude that I stand here as a member of Ontario Heroes, not just a member, but part of all of the organizers. And on behalf of our president and CEO, Praveen Varki, I take this opportunity to specially thank all our speakers and all our organizers who came forward today to make this event a reality. I joined when Bhavin started speaking, and I must say that it hit home, because this is the journey of any professional in Canada, be it a pharmacist, be it a lawyer, be it anybody. We will all go through our shares of struggles, but if with perseverance, focus, dedication, hard work, truly Canada can make your dreams come true. So once again, a big thank you to Hina. You did a wonderful job. And every other speaker whom I missed and the others whom I heard, it was, I'm sure all of us can agree that it was a great evening, very resourceful. And I hope you guys have got some pointers to take home. And we hope to see you all in Canada as pharmacists, if you are not already here. And if you are here, then at least I hope to bump into you as a pharmacist eventually. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. So have a good weekend. Stay safe.
Have a good weekend. Thank you, Praveen.
Thank you, Hina. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone.